Welcome to episode 214 of Thrive by Additive-Free Lifestyle. We are Tracy and Jo, and we are two sisters who are very passionate about asking questions and seeking information on topics that we may not yet understand. Thrive is a podcast show that will help you lower your toxic load. It will guide you through various stages of life and give you permission to ask questions and seek advice on things that make you curious. And that's, again, what we have done today, because we are super curious on how to grow a much better veggie patch that has more nutrition in the food, regenerative farming. Like we've gone down the path of a few of these, I guess, maybe not a few of these topics, but definitely we've gone down the path of trying to understand our food system better, I guess, in a way. Jo, is that what we'd say?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's all just interesting information that is something to be learned, and you definitely will learn something in this episode, although in saying that, maybe you have all your veggie patch completely under control. But I've never seen it done this way, and I know Mum and Dad have had a veggie patch my whole life. So have a listen and enjoy. You can definitely grow your own food from nothing, from a very little space of an apartment to a huge farm. So have a listen, and we hope that you enjoy.
Some links throughout the episode as well. So we've linked it all into our show notes. So please make sure you go visit our show notes if you want to look at any more information that Jo talks about. And when I say Jo, not Jo, my sister Jo, but Jo that we interviewed, Jo. She talks about a lot of different things, and she gives some names of different products and stuff. So please make sure you check out our show notes as well. Welcome, Jo. We are so super excited to have you on our show today. Now, we met Jo about, I think, around 8 odd years ago at a blogging event, back when blogging was a thing. And turns out that she lives in the same state that I do, on a little island called Bruny Island. And it is the most beautiful little island you'll ever go to. And Jo has started this farm. So we'll get you to share this, Jo. So it's not me telling the story, because I don't really know how it started. But share your story and a little bit about you.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. It's nice to reconnect once again after all these years. Wow, the story. Everyone has a story, don't they? So I've always been into organic food, and obviously my passion is holistic health and wellness and nutrition. And I have a big passion for local seasonal food and farmers who grow sustainably as well. And my previous life before Bruny Island was managing health food stores. And one of my roles in that was to do all the buying of the fruit and veggies and everything like that. So I had this real connection with the farmers, and I loved their stories. But I also could see, the hard work that they did and what it took to bring, the boxes of food into the store. And I wanted to be that as well. Like, I wanted to grow my own food. I wanted to, learn everything I possibly could and sort of live off the land, so to speak, and live more sustainably. So we bought the land 12 years ago. We came over and purchased the house on the day, which, if anyone's been to Bruny Island and sat in the ferry queue for 2 or 3 hours, that would turn anybody off. And we brought it on Easter Monday, and we sat in the ferry queue for like 3 hours trying to get off the island, going, what have we done? So we bought 10 acres, and it was basically bare land. And I started with just growing food in like this small, what I call this like roundabout garden. Like, it's our turning circle, and it's got this garden in the turning circle. And I started there not knowing anything about growing food, nothing. Like, I grew up with Dad, who's got the most amazing garden. I'm sure I've inherited his green thumb. And I just taught myself everything that I know so far. Obviously, there's so much to learn about growing food. You never get bored. And I just had a gardening client this morning, and I said, you just never get bored, gardening. There's always something to do, and there's always something to learn, especially about soil health. And then over the 11 years and 2 children later who are twins, I had this really fantastic market garden, which is still a market garden, but I don't sell commercially. and I was growing food for the Bruny Island community. But we grow all our own food, and we have done for the last, I would say the last 9 to 10 years. We grow all our own food. The only food that I buy now is sweet potato and ginger, and like turmeric and things like that. So yeah, so it's been great. So we've gone to, we've been we live off grid, so we generate all our own power as well. So the farm is just run on tank water, and we've got solar, and we've got a wind turbine, and we try and just live as simply and sustainably as we possibly can here. So it's been a massive learning curve, and it still is a learning curve. Sometimes I'm like, what the F? Because it's also really bloody hard work as well. I'm not going to deny that. There's just a lot of long hours growing food because I'm on a bigger scale. That's why. It's not like growing food in general. If you're on a really small scale, of course it's not hard work, but I'm on a really big scale. And now that I've stopped commercially selling, and I just grow food obviously for ourselves and any of my friends or family, and I take it down to our school, and I donate a lot of the food as well. That's kind of reduced the hours that I work in the garden.
So for those that don't know, Bruny Island it's not the warmest of climates. And so we're limited to what we can grow here in Tassie, right? Like we're not growing mangoes and pineapples and things,
Yeah. I wish.
I wish. That would be great.
But then, and so that we don't, yes, I personally buy a mango in summer or a pineapple in summer. And it's what being on the farm has also taught me is to really connect to the food that we are growing and the seasons that we're growing in as well, and not to grow mangoes. And you don't need to, like, I don't eat a zucchini until summertime. So I don't eat a tomato, apart from my partner does actually, I'll get to that, but I don't eat a tomato until like in 3 months' time in November. So it's that connection to the season that what food growing has done, and what the climate has helped us do in a way is to reconnect to when food is available and what to eat, and then you get the best nutrient density from that that food because you're eating it in the season. So we are a colder climate. Sorry.
I was going to say, I think that's really important for people to understand is this connection. Having grown up on a dairy farm ourselves for many years as children, having a connection to even just where milk comes from, simple things like that. But we also had Dad and Mum would raise animals for us to eat, and they would just be the ones that were for us to eat. And we had a veggie patch and different things, not on the scale that you have, of course, but chickens and stuff. So just having that connection, I think, is so important. And there's so many of us that don't anymore, and so many kids that don't understand where food comes from. And just to give you a little story, last night I was watching a TV show with my husband. It's called Alone. I don't know if anyone's seen it. And they basically put people out into the wilderness completely alone. And this man, they're allowed to take a few survival items with them. And this man had a bow and arrow thing, and he shot a squirrel out of the tree. And look, I know in my heart, I'm like, it's a little squirrel, but he needed it to survive, to eat, because he was literally in the wilderness with nothing. That they don't take tents or anything. They have to build all their stuff. It's kind of a cool show, actually. But it makes you appreciate, like, we have to have a connection somewhere to where our food comes from.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. And I think with having children, I've got twins who are now 6. They've been into the garden with me since I was born. And we go into the supermarket now. And obviously they've got all the crappy junk food at the counters and everything like that. My kids are like, oh, can I have this? And I'm like, and the first thing I will say to them is, does it come from nature? And they'll go, no. I was like, well, then you can't have it. And that's the end of the story, because I have that connection. They don't argue with me about it. They don't, they just understand that if the food doesn't come from nature, we just don't eat it because they've seen me really educate them on, like this morning, my little man, Banjo, he goes to me, Mum, when's those apricots? Like, I want to have an apricot, you know. I'm like, well, in summertime, like when Santa comes is when you can have the apricots. So for them, it's like, right, Santa, apricots, raspberries, strawberries, you know, it's that really fun time of the berries and everything like that. So they get that connection. And I think that's really, it's especially for kids, it's so important that we just keep reminding them of those, and not in I really want to point out, it shouldn't be in this like scary way, like with climate change and everything, and to put fear into our children and anxiety in our children. Make it really fun for them, you know, like Santa time, apricots, you know, raspberries, strawberries, and I, you know, most time, 90% of the time, I don't get any arguments when I have to go to the supermarket and go, it just doesn't come from nature. There's nothing they can say. There's nothing they can say, you know.
That's such a good way.
Yeah.
Having that connection. Have you ever heard of the blue zone? I know we're really off topic here, but have you ever heard of the blue zone? Have you heard of it, Jo, the blue zone?
No.
There's zones around the world where people are living to 100 in bigger populations than anywhere else in the world. And there's a great documentary on Netflix about it. And I've just started watching that. And it's so incredible, Jo, as you talking, because one of the things that they've discovered from blue zones is this higher connection to food and community. And they know that food and community and a connection to earth helps people live closer to 100. And having that connection to earth, which we can all have. If you have a piece of grass in your yard, you can literally go and plant your feet on the earth. Like we could all have a connection to earth. We don't have to have a 10-acre farm to do that. So I would love to talk to you a little bit more about like what I'll say the average person in their standard home, or even living in a very small block of flats, even like a lot of people are living in high-rise buildings. What can they do to have this connection to food and connection to earth?
Oh, so much. I mean, if you look at it from just like the food side of things and you want to grow your own food, like before I moved to Bruny Island, I was living in a 2-bedroom apartment and I just grew food in pots on a balcony. So just start there, start with what you have and getting your hands in the soil there. Yes, you can go to your local hardware and buy organic composting bags and, you know, go somewhere where they sell really beautiful seedlings and buy off them and plant some seedlings. You know, you can put herbs on your balcony, on your kitchen windowsill. You can, you know, do some leafy greens or natives or anything like that. It doesn't necessarily need to be food. You can actually just grow natives inside your house. That's connecting to nature. And so that's a start just with the food. But then source out your farmers markets as well, and then go and just discover all the farmers markets that you possibly can in your local area if you have that. And then if you don't have that, I guess it's, you know, when you do go to the supermarket, just stopping and kind of, you know, being really mindful of how that food has been grown and how long it's taken for that food to get to where you are in the supermarket as well, and the process that it has, and the price as well will really dictate for you if it is in season. If it's a really high price, it's not a seasonal food. And so that's another way of really connecting to nature and everything like that. I mean, and then I guess when you're looking from a physical side of things, is just getting outside and going for a walk is the biggest thing, because, and putting down your phone and not, you know, not listening to podcasts. I mean, this one's going to inspire you. But for me, I don't listen to podcasts in the garden. I do when I'm sowing seeds because it's different. But when I'm actually physically working in the garden, I won't listen to a podcast because I just really need to connect to nature and not have anything in my head. Because for me, it's a mental gardening. For me, I started gardening, I mean, getting back to my story, because I also had postnatal depression. So it was a really beautiful way for me to kind of nurture myself. And that's why the garden is more important to me in so many ways. So for me, I'm always in my head. So I need to kind of get into the earth and really connect to the earth. So I don't wear gloves, which is probably not the best thing, but I don't wear gloves and I don't put anything in my ears. So I can kind of really feel the surroundings around me. So there's lots of different ways that anyone can connect. You can just sit in a park and take your shoes off and go barefoot, or lay down on the grass and, you know, or meet a friend and go for a walk. There's so many ways that, you know, we can connect to nature. Just, you know, once we start looking, it's everywhere around us.
The other thing is to look at the label in the supermarket and see where it's grown. Yeah, if it's grown in the USA or it's grown in India or overseas, etc., then typically it's not in season in Australia.
That's right.
Well.
Yeah. And grapes, you know, looking at grapes is a big thing that we generally get tricked on, because grapes are in the supermarket right now. And if you turn the packet around, it's USA grown. And then you've got the sulfates on the grapes as well. Strawberries as well, especially in Tasmania, you see strawberries and raspberries and all that all year round. But the peak time for those is at Christmas time, you know, same with cherries and things. And garlic as well is a big one to really always look out for, because garlic is always imported from Mexico when it's out of season.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the supermarkets is a great, you know, they're a great learning tool, basically, because you can actually just pick it up, take some time, look at the label, like you said, and yeah, then you'll know when it's in season, and the price will also dictate that as well.
So Jo, you mentioned buying seeds from a really good place. Can we just circle back to that? Because most people probably go down to their local huge hardware store. I won't mention names, but you know, the big one, and buy just seeds off the shelf there. So should we be looking at different seeds, and if we're trying to grow sort of as organic as possible, do our seeds make a difference to that?
Yeah, they do. They definitely do. You know, I don't want to deter people. So I think it's really important though, if the only option that you have to grow your own food is to buy those seeds, then please buy those seeds.
Yeah.
You know, because we don't want to bring any shame into any of this. You know, we're trying to get people to do the best that they can with what they have.
Absolutely.
If you have a choice, and there's two different, like you're going, and there's two different seeds, and there's the heirloom seeds, or the seeds are grown locally, then definitely go that. And then, because some seeds are treated with different herbicides and things like that, so you kind of want to avoid those seeds. And then just, again, like when you're buying seedlings, look for like the local seeds or the local seedlings, you know, that are in your area. So I mean, there's so much into seeds, like the biodiversity, what's been sprayed on them, how they're being treated, as in like that, you know, do they actually treat the seed before it gets to you? So if you can see it's heirloom, it's organic. I mean, I'd sometimes buy F1, which is a hybrid, which has been bred to give you a better crop. And that's more of a market garden approach as well. But I do encourage some of my clients to buy those seeds, because things like, you know, your brassicas, your broccoli collie, your cabbages, those sort of the brassicas, they're really hard to grow. And if you buy ones that are actually being bred where you against, you know, they're really resilient, then you get a really good crop. So, you know, we could do a whole podcast on just seed buying. So
it's good to know. I know there's places you can jump online and get organic seedlings from as well.
Yes,
so they're not quite hard to source. They're a little bit more expensive, but cheaper than buying already grown food from the supermarket.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And I have found organic seeds in that big hardware store. So, and that's what I've chosen, because that's at the time all I had access, or I was there and I was like, oh, handy. Great.
Yeah, that's
organic
right.
seeds.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'll
Yeah.
grab those.
But if you, but sometimes also, I mean, I should point out that sometimes organic seeds don't actually give you a good crop. So sometimes with seeds, it's a trial and error. Like I have a few good seed companies that I buy for, especially in Tasmania. There's quite a few, and we can put them in the show notes, or I can send them to you, and you can let all
that'd be great.
your followers
Yeah.
know. Yeah, I'll do that
that'd
for
be
you.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. We'll definitely do that. Yeah, excellent. All right. So if we're back to our standard block, we've just got a couple of little, tubs or troughs, or what's the best thing to grow things in? This is actually a question I have.
I'd
So
like to know that. I'm about to put a veggie patch in.
we've got galvanized steel tub things that people you can see and sell, or should we be using, I mean, I'm probably confident we're not using treated pine, but what's the best? Like I've seen even bags, and I've been like, they look
grow
great,
bags. Yeah.
but does the felt and the plastic go into the soil? Like,
I would avoid using plastic because of what could potentially leach out of the plastic. Felt, I would be pretty confident to use. If you're just using the galvanized containers, absolutely fine. The first thing I would ask yourself is, what do you love to eat? So don't grow things just because it's fad and, like it's, like kale is a superfood. If you don't like kale, don't go and grow kale. What do you like to eat in your family? Is it your normal staple diet of carrots, potatoes, broccoli and that sort of food, then plan to grow that. Leafy greens are really easy to grow. And so like spring onions and radishes and turnips, and they're really fun to grow for kids as well. So you can start with those sort of things. That's the first thing. The second thing is, when is the right time in your season and in your microclimate to actually grow the food? So for me, in Tasmania, we start growing our tomatoes seedlings late August. They don't get transplanted into the garden until November, and then we only have a short window to eat those tomatoes. But for someone who's in Sydney, or Queensland, they'll start their tomatoes a lot earlier. So work out what actually grows at the time in your right microclimate. Yeah. Then you look at what to put in your soil, and in my whole garden, so we built this garden from absolute scratch. We had a paddock of capeweed, and I have not tilled the garden. The garden is built all on a no-dig premises, which is a holistic approach to farming, a regenerative approach to farming. So we're not tilling the soil, we're improving the soil, we're increasing our biodiversity. Now, you can do that in small scale, absolutely. So you just do a no-dig system of, you can do cardboard, then depending on if you're growing outside on the grass and you want to build a bed, or you're doing it in a tub, you can still do like beautiful manure and some silage or some straw, and then some compost, and then some more manure, and then some more compost, and then you just grow into that.
Yeah, I watched you do that online, and this is like, I wanted to speak to you since that day. So this is a long time, because I'm like, that seems to take a long time. Like, you're layering stuff, and you keep going, and just get a plower in there, Jo.
Yeah, but you don't. I mean, you'll still get vegetables, but will you get really good nutrient dense vegetables? Is the question, I suppose. Yeah, you're right. I mean, on big scale farming, of course they're going to use tractors and stuff because they need to. But it depends on what they're putting back into the soil to give. Whatever the soil has, the plants will uptake, and we eat it as in our diet.
Yeah.
And we've got, it's really important to highlight that, and this comes back to the question of, should we eat organically or shouldn't we eat organically? Also comes back to, what can you do with your own resources and your own life and so forth like that. Go back to doing the best you can, especially where money is tight for so many of us.
Yeah.
Then I would then go back to growing your own food to try and solve a lot of these issues. I think I've gone a bit off track, but getting back to doing your own garden beds, it's really quick and simple if you've got your resources there to do a no-dig system, especially on very small scale. If you're just doing it out in your backyard or in a pot, you can go and easily buy some organic compost and get some pea straw or some sugarcane mulch and get a couple of bags of sheep poo. And I should say sheep manure, sorry, sheep manure or any animal manure, and start layering and start building those beds.
Okay, so when you say layering, we need to dumb it down, people like me.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't just mix it all through? Like
No. So you think about it like a lasagna. You are building a lasagna in soil health.
Okay.
Yeah. So your first layer, if you've just got grass and you've got just a piece of grass in your backyard and you want to make a garden bed, this is what I would do. So get your pen and paper ready. So you put down a layer of cardboard, or you can do newspaper, but layer of cardboard, but take the tape off the cardboard because the plastic, you don't want that going into the earth and it doesn't break down. Cardboard. Then you will put your straw. Then you would do a layer of soil, just general multi-purpose garden soil. Then you would do a layer of manure. Then you would do another layer of straw. Then you do a layer of compost. A layer of manure and then a layer of compost.
Okay. And then wait for that to all break down.
Yes and no, you can, but you don't have to. In my experience, I don't. I plant straight into it. So you can punch little holes into it. You can add a little bit more compost into each hole and a little bit of fertilizer. I make my own fertilizer, but you can buy some really fantastic organic fertilizers. There's a company called Nutrog, Nuetrog, and they have some fantastic certified organic products. And then you can just pop a little bit of fertilizer in there, pop your seedling in or your seeds, and you've got your own garden beds. Okay. If you're doing go for it.
Oh, no, you keep going.
I was going to say, well, if you're doing it in a pot, though, you can sort of do similar, but you just don't need the cardboard or anything like that.
Okay, I was going to ask about that next. So for people that are listening, we are going to have all of these details in our show notes. So this is episode 214. So just head to our website, additive-free-lifestyle.com/podcast 214. We'll have it all written there. Now, for somebody that needs to get garden beds, because I do, because where the beds are going to go is on rock beside my house. So is it the same principle in a garden bed?
Yes. Yeah. Just keep using the same principle with everything that you do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
I'm really shocked that you finish with compost. Like I'm just sitting here going, right, so we don't finish with soil, we finish with compost.
Yeah.
My brain's going, wouldn't that burn the plants, like the seedlings?
Not if it's really good compost. So you can definitely make sure that wherever you source your compost is a reputable area. And compost is a really tricky thing to have access to, like good compost. So it will burn your soil, it will burn your plants if the pH is too high. You just won't get any growth. So your vegetable pH want to be around 6.5 to 7. Yes, but depending on what you're growing, 6 to 6.5 to 7. That's where you want your pH to be on your vegetables.
And you can buy pH testing kits from everywhere.
Hardware
stores. Yeah.
Yeah, if you need to buy it in bags, just always please go organic. Just spend that, it's really important that we really highlight that we need to really spend our money on investing in the soil health. And then because that's where we get the nutrient density and high quality of the vegetables that we're growing. you start with poor soil, then you're going to get disease, and your plants aren't going to be strong. They won't have their root structure won't be strong, and you'll just get diseases in your plants, or you just won't get an abundance in your vegetables if you don't start with really good soil.
Yeah. And then once the plant has been harvested and you pull it out, do you replant in that area? Like, what's your process after you've harvested?
Yep, I definitely replant. You just, again, build your soil back up.
So you mix it all through and then build it back up again?
No, I will. For me, in my particular areas, I use what's called a broad fork. So I aerate the soil, so I don't till the soil. So I aerate the soil, and then I add my fertilizer. So I make my own fertilizer, and then I'll add some more manure and then some more compost.
Okay. With the manure or the poo, are you specific on where you get that from so that it's not full of thistle and weed and, whatever?
Yeah. I'm very lucky here on the island because we source it from here. You'll find that horse manure contains a lot more weeds, and so does sheep manure, than cow manure, because cows have, was it 2 stomachs? So they can digest more and so forth. And horses and sheep, obviously, it just doesn't get broken down. So you do find you get a lot more weeds from horse manure and sheep manure. I just, whatever I can get access on, because I am a very, I don't want to say Scroogey, I try not to spend a lot of,
You're very
careful. So whatever, if someone says, I've got all this like horse manure, I'm not going to say no to it. But I don't buy, obviously, from feedlots because of the antibiotics that they could potentially be given the animals. The manures come from small scale sustainable farms, and that where they're not using chemicals and everything on the farm. So that's just something to keep in mind.
I mean, I see quite a lot of people on the side of the road selling bags of stuff. Often it's sheep poo or horses. Normally it's sheep or horses. And actually, where I go to a cafe most Saturdays, there's a guy there that sells, I think it's sheep poo. So like someone like that, I mean, look, I don't know what he does with his sheep, but that small scale farmer, like he's probably better than some big, I don't know.
Yeah. And look, most of the time you could say with like sheep are always outside free ranging, like they're outside, they're in open air paddocks, they're not in a cage or anything like that. So you've got to use your own understanding of that. It's more like, big monoculture animal factory farms that you're not going to go and source from, which you wouldn't anyway. So we're very, very, very lucky in a lot of places in Australia where we can have access to, good quality manures and stuff like that. If you can't get any access then definitely buy it in bags. You can get pelletized chicken manure in bags. You can get pelletized cow manure in bags as well. But just again, look at the company that you're buying from and just make sure it's a reputable, says organic or something on the bag. Like it's and it's actually been certified as well. It's not like it's not greenwashing.
Yeah.
And do you always take your seedlings and then turn them into your seeds and then always turn them into a seedling, or do you just plant your seeds straight into the ground?
I do both. Both. So I grow everything from seed into seedling, or the things like carrots, radishes, your root vegetables, carrots, radishes, turnips, beetroot. I also transplant. I sow direct into that as well. I do a little bit differently because I want to have a succession planting. So like you never ever buy carrots from, I just had this conversation actually with my gardening client. We were just kind of being grumpy at one of the hardware stores of like selling carrot seedlings. Never buy carrot seedlings. People always say I fail at growing carrots, and it's because you have to sow them direct. And the same with, what else is there? Parsnips. Never buy parsnip seedlings if you see parsnip seedlings, or radish, any root crop, basically, just always sow them direct.
But snow peas grow really well from a seed, direct into the
Yes.
ground as well.
Yes, yeah. I grow both. I put mine direct into the ground, and I also start them off as seeds for seedlings, because I want to have that succession planting. And also it's like a secure crop as well, because if you sometimes plant them direct into the ground, you don't know what the weather's going to do. If we get lots of rain, which we're probably not going to now, but if we got lots of rain, it will rot the seed in the ground. So because I want to have food all year round, I have planned my garden so that I am never, ever out of food.
So good.
It's amazing.
So
Now,
good.
Jo, what do you do for pest control? Because obviously being a super organic, clean farm, what do you do for pest control? Do you just rely on chickens and ducks and stuff? Or?
Biodiversity. So 2 things. So we don't use any chemicals. 2 things. You want biodiversity in your plants, but you want to also have biodiversity in your soil. And so I can't strongly point this out. Really get your soil right by having biodiversity in the soil, because then whatever the plant uptakes makes that plant strong, which then becomes resilient to all the bugs and everything like that.
So you don't do any type of companion planting as well?
No. I just make sure that I plant everything. I don't have time with 2 little people, and what I do, going, should I plant this next to this or this next to this? I just make sure that I just grow a diverse range of flowers, herbs, culinary herbs, medicinal herbs, and vegetables. So, and I also crop rotate, so I don't put the same. Say I pull out carrots out of one bed, I'm not going to then sow carrots again straight into that bed. I'll grow something above ground. So carrots are underground, so a root crop. I'll grow, say, silver beet. So I don't get too scientifically worried about it. I just make sure that I'm changing the plant species in the ground. So I'm not going to grow that same plant family in that same ground. And then I just make sure I've got lots of flowers around. I make sure the garden isn't stressed, so I water accordingly. And I also fertilize accordingly as well. So, but for a small scale garden, which I started on, I did exactly the same, but you're just doing it on a really smaller, a smaller piece of land, basically. Nothing really changes. You're still using the same system. It's just how often you're doing it.
Yeah. Love it.
I remember coming to your farm. We were heading over to breeding camping. It must have been 5-ish years ago. And you were like, I said, do you have any chickens? No, never getting chickens. How many chickens do you have these days?
Well, we normally have 50.
Oh, wow.
But now we've got about 20, I think there's about 28, because we have this local goshawk, and the goshawk has become a pet, not intentionally, and he's eating our chickens. So he's taking our chickens. So we're not investing in any more chicken. I've just hatched 14 new babies to try and bring our flock back up. But until we solve, our chickens are out in our paddock. So they're give your listeners an idea of what they're doing. They're in a chicken tractor. So we move the chicken tractor around the farm every week to help regenerate the land. So what happens is their manure drops down through the tractor onto the grass, and then the nitrogen and everything helps with the fertilization of the land. Which also, getting back to about pest control, that the chickens obviously clean up a lot of the pests as well in the paddocks. So we have to kind of come up with a solution of how we're going to help save our chickens, because the goshawk keeps coming down and taking a chicken. And killing it.
The circle
So
of
no, I
life.
mean that's all. It's just exactly. It's just life and farming, and you can't do anything. And you would never ever ever want to see a goshawk hurt, and because they're absolutely beautiful, and we are on their land basically. So you've got to work with nature. You don't want to do any harm to any animal. I go out there a lot and probably do a few swear words at this goshawk.
Oh, no.
Oh, dear.
But normally we have about 50 chickens. Yes. So,
Yeah, from none. No, I'm not
From
getting
none.
chickens.
I'm not getting a chicken. No way. I love my chickens.
It's so good. It's just been an honor to watch you grow and go. I just still remember the first patch. Now you've got greenhouses, you've got a yoga retreat, you've got a like marquee set up, and there's just so much beautiful things that you're doing.
Thank you.
For not only people on Bruny Island, like I have moved back to the Gold Coast now, and I'm still watching you, and listeners who are listening to this podcast are going to benefit from you all over the world. So thank you for everything that you do.
Oh, thank you. That's really kind. I love what I do. I love growing food, and I love nurturing women on the other side of what I do. And bringing that connection together. It's really special, I think.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely. Well, I'll send you some photos of my
yes.
my patch.
Yeah, do. I would love to see it. I'm helping mostly women, actually. It's really nice. I do gardening mentor consult. So if any of your listeners want to put in a garden or have a garden, I'm helping people all across Australia grow food in their own backyard. And oh my goodness, the transformations I am seeing and the joy that I'm seeing with these women is just, it's so heartwarming. It's so beautiful. So please do.
Okay.
I love seeing people's gardens.
I will. What's your website, Instagram handle? Where can people contact you?
Well, I don't have a website. I'm probably the only person that doesn't have a website. But I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook under Naturally Well with Jo.
Naturally Well with Jo. We'll pop it all in our show notes as well.
You.
We've got a little bit of front yard, and I've been at my husband. Tracy's got an apple tree and some things in her front yard. I'm like, can I please put a dragon fruit tree in the front yard? He's like, oh, but then people will pick them. I'm like, I've got no other room. I want a dragon fruit tree.
Just do it. Just do it. Do it and then explain later, or then he'll just start enjoying the fruit, and then you'll be like,
Okay. I'm going to put a little orchard out where the trailer's probably meant to go. But anyway, we don't have a trailer yet, so there'll be an orchard there and he won't have anywhere for a trailer to go. But we'll sort that out later. It's all good. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. And thanks again.
No worries. Thank you for having me. It's lovely to reconnect again.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. To get the show notes, you head to additive-free-lifestyle.com/podcast 214. All the details are in there, and I know that I'll be definitely going back to that to have a read and maybe another listen when I put my veggie patch in. So we would love for you to leave a review on our website, our website would be great as well, but on the podcast channel, because it just helps the algorithm and it helps people find our show so that they can learn and thrive and get curious all at the same time.
Yeah, please share this out for someone. If you know someone, just copy the link and share it out as well.